Hello and welcome to Wellness and Recovery. I'm Greg with the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition.
And I'm Karen with North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition. From your personal experience, what are some of the things you learned about reentry?
So for me, learning about reentry was a process. And so you can't put off reentry until the day you walking out the gate. You got to start working on that while you locked up.
But what were some of the things that you felt like with your reentry piece that helped you when you first entered the incarceration?
I did reach out for help.
Okay.
And so, and that was something that had gotten my way during previous incarcerations because, with my convict mentality, I often viewed the staff members as the adversary. I also, I would view the people that were there to help me as people that were against me. There was a counselor at the institution that I was housed at that I reached out to, and I said, hey, I want to do something different this time. I'm trying to work on my reentry.
Sure. And for some people that don't start on the first day, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, like I said, getting comfortable, changing the mindset. Is being aware that these resources are in different locations and what that individual might look like or what their title may be. But the main thing is reaching out for help, because until you get out, what can you do while you're in?
And a lot of people, I think, decide to put that stuff off until, after they get out. But for me, I think one of the things that was most important for me during my reentry process was how I spent my time while I was incarcerated. You go to any typical housing unit, and I've been around plenty, county jail, state facilities, you name it. The majority of the people are sitting around all day. They're playing cards. They're at the card table, or they playing bid whist, or playing spades, or bones, or playing poker, or they watching TV, or they playing the phone, or they waiting on the mail call, or they sleeping all day, staying up all night. Like, they bidding, and that's how folks bid, just trying to kill the time to get home. But that time is some time you can never get back, and how you invest that time, is going to have an impact on you when you get out. Are you going to get out prepared, or are you going to get out unprepared?
You need your ID,
right?
Knowing that you may need a birth certificate, knowing that you may need a social security card, and sometimes you can work on those things, like you said, while you're in there, day 1, day 10, start working on these things. So soon as you get out, these things are already in place. Making sure that you have a good, valid addresses. Maybe if you need to change addresses. Also working with the people, like you said, not viewing them as an adversary, but also using them as a tool to get the things that you need to help do this reentry process while you're preparing to re-enter back to this community, or even another community is also an option.
So that time that you're using while you're incarcerated, that is going to pay some sort of dividend when you get out. If you wasted that time and you spent that time doing the same things that you was doing before you went into jail, chances are when you walk out, you're going to get the same results. But if you utilize that time while you're incarcerated to do things like reach out for help, find out if there's a liaison working at the jail, or a reentry program, or a counselor, or some sort of positive program or activity that you can get involved in. Find out the resources that are in your community. Start mapping those. Start thinking long term, like, what are my goals? What do I want to do? Get some direction. And if those are the type of things that you use spending your time, chances are when you release, you're going to be a lot more prepared than your counterparts. And some of the ways that you can prepare are like things that you mentioned, like you can get a Social Security card while you're incarcerated. You can get that sent to, the case manager or the reentry coordinator or whoever that designated person is at that institution that can hold that for you in booking or in R&D or whatever that place is that you release from. Same thing with birth certificates and things of that nature. Like, you can start working on getting that paperwork together so that when you get out, you have a little bit of an edge and you're not waiting and wasting more time when you get out.
Not being afraid to ask for help, if help is what you need, right? Not having that be a barrier to your next step. So we want to use all of it. And we bring it all back to all of it still doing harm reduction.
Right, and you make a perfect point is there are multiple pathways to wellness. There are multiple pathways to recovery. What works for some person, for some people, might not work for other people. And so, you have to find your way through and pick up as many of these tools that you can to use and benefit you in whatever your pathway looks like. And so, some of the things that may work for me may not work for the next person, and vice versa. But we want to try to equip individuals with as many tools and strategies as possible to help them solve problems and overcome these obstacles.
it all works. So let's work it. And being well, like you said, even mentally being well, taking advantage of mental health services. Wellness looks different for people. Some people now coin the term self-care. But when you're incarcerated, what does that look like? What is self-care? What is wellness when you're in? Now, like you said, for you, you changed some things, but it took time. It took time to change the mind. It took time to think about how am I spending my time? And again, being comfortable enough to reach out to some of the resources that were available in your area. Because like I said, not waiting to get out and be like, okay, now I need this, now I need that. What jobs are open to me? You know, where did my mail go the last time? And holding on to that packet when you are released, because that has that vital information in it, because not every community has the same set of resources. And not every community knows about 211 or has a community resource guide that maybe a coalition has put together, or maybe North Carolina Harm Reduction has put together, that you can go on their website and find resources for.
So, you know, the wellness piece is going to tie right into, again, how you choose to use your time, how you utilize your time, you know, whether that's preparing and utilizing it that way, or if it's bidding. Like, are you going to bid or are you going to start preparing? And sometimes preparing is just asking yourself what you want to do. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to live? Where am I trying to go long term? What are my goals? What direction am I moving in? You know, and, you know, that ties right into wellness. And when we talk about wellness, some people are like, what is wellness? So, you know, wellness is something that is multidimensional, right? You know, when we think of wellness, wellness is not just, am I well as far as my physical state? That's one part of it. You know, am I eating right? Am I sleeping right? Am I getting exercise? That definitely ties into wellness. But, you know, human beings, we're multidimensional beings. You know, we got these multiple dimensions to us. And, you know, a lot of people, I'd like to keep it simple and just say, like, mind, body, soul, you know, in relationships, you know. And you can also tie in that emotional piece too. But, you know, there's other dimensions to us as well. But just to keep it simple, you know, the ideal of wellness is that we're more than just our physical selves. We have our emotional self. We have our intellectual self. You know, we have the relationships that we have. And all of these different areas of our life, all these different parts of our life play into how we feel and how well we are. And so if we neglect these different parts of our lives, if we neglect our emotional health, if we neglect our relationships that are important to us, if we neglect, you know, our intellectual, or even if we neglect our physical health, that's going to cause us to be unwell. And so wellness is a holistic idea when, you know, looking at a person in it as a whole person.
And there are multiple levels of recovery too. There are all different pathways to recovery. Some people use that word as, oh, it's just this. No, it's everything. And like I said, mind, body, soul, wherever you look for it at, wherever you find it at, what's comfortable you, because it may change. It may change on a daily basis. Your wellness may change because your routine may change. But as we're looking forward to the things that are coming up, what else can you say? And using peers, like, to tell your story.
So, you know, for me, I would say that keeping the wellness piece in mind, you know, it was recognizing what relationships that I had that were unhealthy for me and replacing those with healthy relationships. And that meant cutting ties with certain people or choosing my peer groups differently, you know, processing and working on my emotional issues that had going on. My substance use played a big part in my wellness. And you mentioned recovery, and of course recovery is, you know, there's multiple pathways to recovery, and so people can get to recovery on a lot of different ways. You know, it could be faith-based. Maybe you have a very strong faith base, and so maybe 12 steps or Celebrate Recovery or something like that could be useful. Some people, like myself, was really into like the cognitive behavioral stuff, so maybe like SMART recovery or cognitive behavioral therapy or something might be helpful. You know, some people may need medicated assisted treatment. We're all experts on our own self, right? You know you better than anybody else can know you. You know, and so you're going to know what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. Now, part of that is also about honesty. You know, sometimes not only are we not honest with other people, but sometimes we're not honest with ourselves either. You know, and so you have to be able to be honest with yourself about what your limitations are, what your strengths are, you know, what's going to work, what's not going to work, so that you don't set yourself up for failure, because it's, one of the big barriers for people that are navigating reentry and navigating recovery is that people set unrealistic expectations for themselves.
Sometimes, and with that reentry piece, check with your local area or the state level to see if they have a reentry coordinator. But also using the resources of the different groups there's MARA for people that are on MAT, but also another one is CODA. Sometimes you find out that you like helping people more than you like helping yourself, right? Or you put other people before you put yourself. And so sometimes that has to change because now it has to start with you. Like you said, for you, it started day one because you chose to make those changes. Maybe everybody doesn't have a day one, but it is a new day to start something new.
For a successful reentry, the self-care and the wellness is important. And we understand that individuals that are releasing from incarceration are at, one, a higher risk of overdose, and two, have a very high likelihood of returning. And so how they spend their time, while they're incarcerated, and what steps they take to prepare, whether that is getting together a release packet with like Social Security cards and birth certificates, or
ID.
putting an ID, or getting a release plan, thinking about where you're going to live.
Valid address.
Or resource mapping, finding out what's available in your community. Like, these are all steps that you can do. And, at the same time, keeping in mind not to set unrealistic expectations for yourself, because, as a person with who's justice involved with significant criminal history, I can attest to the barriers and the challenges that you're going to face when you come home. However, if you don't give up, stay determined, stay resilient, and see things through, you can be successful.
Yeah, stay connected, get connected, and remember, the connection always starts with what? People being people, looking at humans as human beings.
Right. The statistics are going to tell you, depending on what type of statistics you're looking at, it's going to be anywhere from 65 to 80% chance of recidivism. It depends on what type of institution you're leaving from, how long you were in there, what your criminal history looks like. There's some variables in that, but nearly 2/3 or greater of the people that walk out the gate are coming back. And so that statistic alone lets you know that the expectations for you, the likelihood, the probability is that you're going to return. And so what are you going to do differently? For me, I would look around, the housing unit that I was in, and I would see 2/3 of the people in there, and I saw how they were doing their time. Like I said, they're just focused on the TV, focused on the card table, focused on bidding, focused on killing the time. And I did the math in my mind, and I said, that's probably representative of those individuals that are more likely going to come back. And then I looked around and seen those individuals that spent their time reading, spent their time in the library, spent their time in education programs, getting their GED, going to substance abuse treatment courses, utilizing whatever resource was available. I seen them as the minority, and I thought to myself, in this situation, I don't want to be in the majority. I want to be in that minority right there, those people that ain't coming back. And keeping in mind, from a harm reduction standpoint, that harm reduction isn't just about working to reduce the harmful effects of substance use, but also reducing the social and environmental harms of this whole criminal, this war on drugs, this whole criminal justice system that we have as well. To be frank, there are going to be a lot of barriers that releasing from jail or releasing from prison that you're going to face that everyday individuals, mainstream Americans aren't going to face. You're going to be told no. You're going to have to explain things on job applications and school applications and applications to move into apartment complexes. There are going to be a lot of barriers, a lot of risks that are going to be out there, and thinking about those and trying to figure out strategies and plans to overcome them is so important before you get out, because you don't want to release back out into the community with these unrealistic expectations that you're going to be able to achieve these things easily, because you're going to be told no, you're going to be denied, and so you have to prepare yourself mentally for that. But if you're not doing the self-care while you're incarcerated, if you're not taking care of your wellness, your overall holistic wellness, if you're not working on yourself in there, then you're not going to be stepping out mentally and emotionally prepared to face those obstacles. And also, speaking about the employment opportunities, focusing on that piece for a second, sometimes that means that you might have to take a job that you don't necessarily like. I had to take 2 jobs that I really didn't want to take, but I had to take them on the short term while I waited for an opportunity in the career field that I really wanted to get into. And so sometimes that's what you have to do. Sometimes you have to work somewhere short term. You have to work somewhere just to make ends meet, pay the bills, get that work history started, get some references, and let some time pass and wait for an opening in that career field or that thing that you really want to do. But again, if you're not thinking about what is it that I really want to do, if you're not even thinking or having that conversation with yourself and giving yourself that direction, because holistic wellness is about having meaning and purpose and direction, as well as this feeling of absence of illness and being well. It's also about having this purposeful, driven life. That's what recovery is all about.
And also for family members too. Don't just think it's for individuals. We want families to be a part of it. Many families are a part of it in one way or another, right? So you want to make sure that you take all that information that you've retained while you're in there and take it out when you go, not just throwing it away or discarding it, because you never know what might be in it. And sometimes you do know what's about to be in it, right? But it's part of the story.
I love peer support. I think it's awesome, as far as it's a mutual kind of ground to stand on with someone where you can learn from someone and they can learn from you, and y'all can have this shared lived experience and someone that you can have real live conversations and connect and communicate with. And every little thing that you can do while you're incarcerated, whether that's get your birth certificate, get your social security card, anything that you can get done before you get out, it's an advantage to you. It's an advantage to you. If you leave with a packet that already has these things in it, this is going to be an advantage for you when you go down to the DMV to get your ID. You're not going to have to wait for your social security card. You're not going to have to go get your birth certificate. You're already going to have those things done. And so that's what, the release plan, thinking about, when I'm going back out, what are the things that I need to do right away? If I can do some of that right now, again, reentry starts the day you get incarcerated, not the day you get out. And so utilize that time while you're incarcerated to think about your reentry.
I think it's important too is also try to be mindful of jobs that, what this job offers, but also remembering what you can bring to the table too, right? Because there are jobs that you're definitely qualified for. You just have to get to those. I also advise people go to maybe the temporary services first, because they have an array of jobs, and it cuts down in case transportation may be a barrier, or wherever location you're in and not knowing the next step. This is a great way to find employment quick and easy and have an array of places that you might try, because who knows what skills you've changed or picked up while you're incarcerated or while you've been away from a certain community, right? So let's use those two, wellness and reentry. It all works. It's all harm reduction.
The way that you use this time right now is vital, to think about your wellness, to think about your recovery, to access resources and people, whether that's staff members or liaisons or people that are coming into the jail to try to connect you and link you with services. Look at these people as allies and resources and not as adversaries. Learn as much as you can. Some of the stuff might apply to you, some of it might not. But the more tools and strategies that you know, the better off you're going to be when you're faced with these obstacles that are awaiting you, because realistically, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And so the best thing you can do is prepare and make a plan.
That's true. Use 211, see if there's a community resource guide, and also check out North Carolina Harm Reduction's website for more resources and referrals.
So as we draw this module to a close, I want to leave you guys with some final thoughts. As I said earlier, from my experience, I learned that the way that you invest the time that you have is something that you can never get back. You can look around your housing unit right now, and you can, I know that I could look around and look at how people were spending their time, and I could conclude the likelihood of who was coming back and who wasn't. And I'm sure you could probably do the same thing. So thinking about how you invest your time in there, and remember that you're the one that decides when your day one is. You're the one that decides when it is that you're going to start thinking about your reentry. And so really the choice is yours. And don't hesitate to reach out to those resources in there and reach out to the resources in your community. Start planning, start thinking about what you're going to do, because this is your life and you're playing for keeps. We want to thank you guys for the time that you spent with us, and we hope that you got as much out of these modules as that we got out of it. Thank you.